Ricky Hampton, along with fellow journalists, sports journalists, Tim Turner and Michael Robinson, coming to you on a Tuesday. And thank you guys for tuning in. We got a couple of guests that are going to join us for this hour. But guys, I think we got to start off with some sad news. A great friend of the show, a great person, the passing of Sekou Smith, the renowned sports writer and NBA analyst.
Yeah, it's a tough day. I know I first met Sekou several years ago. My wife is from Jackson, Mississippi, and I worked at the Clarion Ledger there. And I would always go back, when we go back for the holidays, go to the newsroom and saw Sekou in there working on the desk that evening, and just met him then right there and thought he was a swell, just a real swell guy, and have followed him forever. He left Jackson onto the AJC where he covered the Hawks. Then he left there and went to Turner and was doing NBA.com and really blew up over there. Highly respected journalist, great guy. Just to talk about things outside of just NBA, just a great person. And it just hit me hard because found out about it about a couple hours ago. Didn't even really know he was that ill, because word was that he was recovering from it, and then finding out today that he passed. And just a really sad day for anybody that knew him, because he was a great journalist, but he was even a better man. Loved Jackson State University, proud JSU alum, proud guy from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I didn't know he was from Grand Rapids initially.
Yeah.
They mentioned of that, and because I said, you're the only person I know from Grand Rapids whose name isn't Van Andel or DeVos, because those cats run the town. Their names are on every building up there. He said, "Yeah, I'm one of the few black Dutchmen," is what he called himself.
Yeah. For me, of course, I actually knew some people from there. Our frat brother Marvin Sapp is from Grand Rapids, and he was married to a young lady named Melinda that actually went to TSU with me. So Grand Rapids was kind of in my mind. And then, of course, him going to a fellow HBCU, and actually one of our rivals. We play them every year for the Southern Heritage Classic. So he and I used to go back and forth about that. So didn't get a chance to meet him in person, but we interacted on social media, of course. And then, of course, he came on our show. So that was at least face-to-face, but not human touching, and then all that. And then, of course, him being from the Midwest also, that always was cool. And then being in this business that we're in. So, yeah, he's always cool. What's that?
I'm sorry, Mike. I was just saying it's a brotherhood.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, brother.
Business that look like us, man.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, and we were kidding him. At least I was, about when he told us the news that those 8 games will be irrelevant for the MVP race, and I said, "What? Wait a minute." And then of course, the bubble situation, he went through it and came back. It seemed like with flying colors, but apparently, I don't know if it was related to the bubble or what's been going on ever since. And it's just sad. And then, like Tim, I saw it. I was just on Facebook talking, looking at all the Kobe stuff, which we'll talk about shortly. And then all of a sudden I said, wait a minute, I hope nobody's playing around. And it said, rest in peace, Sekou. I said, wait a minute, they had like his 2 decades of working at the NBA. And I said, wait a minute. And then I went to other sources, of course, which we should do as journalists. And then I looked on NBA TV just to double check. And I saw Steve Smith, also from Michigan, from Detroit, of course. The NBA, not Stephen A. Smith, but Steve Smith, the NBA player. And he said that he and Sekou have been, really cool for a long time because they're both from Michigan, and that they used to go back and forth because Steve Smith went to Michigan State. And even though Sekou was a Jackson State alum, he was fond of the University of Michigan. So they used to go back and forth with that. And, it was right before he's about to do the broadcast. I think it's the Clippers and Hawks or somebody playing.
Yeah.
And So he did that. You could tell that he was, getting close to tearing up because, it's hard.
I am sitting here stunned right now. I mean, it's hard to put the words together. But I really say the greatest thing for me about being a sports writer all these years, run all the games that you go to and everything, it was the people that I met. And Sekou fits right in that, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always the after hours stuff. It's because, you know, game time, you guys are working. Cats got deadlines, different deadlines, doing whatever. But it's the time before the game. And it's actually, you know, when past deadline, when the cats are just sitting up there just talking about life and the job and everything. And, you know, he's a fellow NABJ guy. And I'm quite sure a lot of NABJ folks will tell you from just going to conventions and doing stuff with folks, that's where those relationships are established. They're solidified. And he was just a cat that was universally liked. If you would just go out there and you see, I typed in Sekou on Twitter and it was trending. It gives you an idea of you'll see all the platitudes that are coming from every corner of the NBA players. And
the respect he got as a journalist.
Right, yeah. Because, you know, I think it was one I was looking at was Jamal Crawford. He said, you know, he was one of the few journalists that he really, really liked. And that when you talk to him, he thought he was talking, you know, he felt like home. Just, you know, just talking to the cat, because he just didn't come at you just wanting to get information. He actually wanted to care. He cared about you. You talk about a guy that was at an interview. He's one of those kind of cat.
And I think we've all been in locker rooms. That's one of the things that I think Black reporters have always been able to relate to a certain extent to players, because, you know, we come from the same backgrounds for the most part. And it's especially early on in my career and your career, Mike's a little bit young, but probably even Mike's too. You know, you didn't see us that often in those locker rooms.
Oh, absolutely. For me.
And exactly, Mike, when you were in Milwaukee and Cleveland. So when a brother saw me, I could always tell that, because, you know, sometimes you see a brother on the street, you walk by and you give him a little nod. And that's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny you say that because, of course, you know, I'm always talking to Mason in the locker room, but I got to know the late Bobby Fields when I was covering Cleveland because he went to Southern. We were sitting there talking to, you know, the HBCU thing. Like I was telling when I was saying to Lindsay, when we had him on, when he's with the Bucks, we go back and forth with the, you know, Jackson State versus, he said, man, we beat you. I said, not when I was there. I said, y'all might have won when I left. I said, no. So so we had that camaraderie. And then, of course, just other players like Allen Houston. I knew him because his, also I knew, of course, but his cousin lived right across the hall from me. And so, you know.
At TSU?
TSU, yeah. And then actually Allen came to TSU a couple times, you know, for like homecoming and stuff like that. So it's a lot of different avenues how I would meet this player. I like J.R. Ryder. So J.R. Ryder was playing for the Lakers, and this is the and I just talked to somebody else about this, about the devastating time when the Bucks lost the Eastern Conference Finals. And I remember the Lakers were playing, and my compadre, who's passed on now, Steve Haywood, he was like, he wanted to talk to JR, but JR was like, I ain't talking to y'all, man. I ain't got time for that. Get away from it. So I said, yo, JR, check this out, man. I'm about to move out to the Bay Area, and I know you from there. Tell me what's the lowdown. He said, oh, okay. He got all comfortable. He said, oh, okay, yeah, man. You know, you really want to party, man. You got to go to San Francisco, you know, but Oakland, you know, Oakland is, you know, is happening too. But, you know, if you really want to party, you got to do that. Then he said, all right, man, what y'all want to talk about? So then I said, come on back over here, Steve. I said, let me take care of this, man. Go back over here, Steve. So I've kind of had that. And at some points, I've had cats jealous of me. Like, well, why do they always just talk to you? And I said, hey, man, you know, it's just like that. You know, another one was Carlos Rogers. Whenever Carlos Rogers came, you know, I'm going to like, yo, what's up, Big Blue? So I talked to Carlos Rogers. You know, he was going through some things where his sister was going through an illness where he was about to donate a body part. And I said, are you willing to, you know, in your career, basically, And he said, "Hey man, I'll do anything for my sister." I said, "I hear that." So,
Wow.
so yeah, so it's been, you know, the HBCU bond, and then of course, like you said, NABJ, or I don't know what's happening here, but NABJ, and uh, also just you know, at games. Like I said, I remember Stephen A. Smith. I didn't get a chance to talk to him because he was too busy bloviating on the phone with somebody at a loud voice. But during the Eastern Conference Finals, when the Bucks and the Sixers played, so I think I met Chris Broussard, I think, over the years. So a lot of these guys I met, like you said, at games. Some I met at NABJ. So yeah, so just things like that.
It is certainly a brotherhood, but then at the end of the day, you got to put in the work, and Sekou put in the work, because I'm sure, you know, we will always judge at a higher standard than some of our counterparts.
Right.
And which was fine with me, because that's the kind of work I was determined to put in anyway. So
he was really looking forward to seeing what Deion was going to do at Jackson State with the football. I know it was. I mean, that he was just chomping at the bit behind that. So he was, you know, he had the big blue and white. He was all about Jackson State, and he was very proud to be a JSU grad. And it's just it's a tough day. It's a tough day because, like you say, he's universally liked, universally respected, great dad. 2 boys, great husband. It's just, you know, everybody, before you start the day thinking about the year anniversary of Kobe Bryant and the people that were lost in the helicopter crash a year ago today, and then you go with something that hits closer to home for a lot more people than the helicopter crash with Kobe, and it just ends that way. It's been a tough couple of weeks, tough couple of days. Hank Aaron's memorial, public memorial was at Truist Park here in Atlanta today. Is a private family funeral tomorrow here in town. But I mean, just the outpouring of emotion and sentiment that's been going on since last Friday. It just seems like it's just kind of overwhelming.
And let's not forget Larry King. Larry King too.
Oh yeah.
For you in Atlanta, CNN.
Right. And Mike, you know, this time last year we were in shock just like we are now with the tragic death of Kobe and his daughter and those other passages on that.
And there's also in between, we were backing it up some before Kobe. In between this, it's like I feel like this was like Roscoe passing was a year ago.
Yeah, that's true.
So it seems like it's been a constant thing that's been going on.
And on this date, of course, I remember going to a Stanford game, and I remember the Stanford women game, and I remember afterwards when we did the press conference, Tara even talked about it. Tara Vanderveer, she talked about how devastating that, you know, we can't really enjoy this win because we lost, you know, Kobe. And I said, wow, because Kobe was a big fixture in women's basketball. I mean, Ionescu, the young lady at Oregon, they were really good friends. And, you know, so she was like the player of the year and all that. But, you know, of course, the season had to end early. But she spoke at his spoke at his eulogy or his celebration, what was going on down in LA, then came back and dropped the triple-double on Stanford. So yeah, but I remember that day. I remember one of my fellow writers, Cheryl Coward, I actually helped with her website called Hoop Feed, where I write about women's college basketball. I help her out every once in a while. And she called me that morning and said, "You hear about Kobe?" I said, "No, what's going on?" She said that he perished in a helicopter crash. I said, "Oh my God." I said, you know, of course I had to do, you know, even though I didn't think she was lying, but I said, you know what, this could be one of those situations where somebody's throwing this stuff out there. So I had to do my double checking and all that. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, then I found out. So it was like a melancholy day driving over to Stanford, and then at the game, it was just like, just wasn't the same. Almost all the reporters were despondent because in some way, fashion or something like that, they crossed paths with Kobe. And like I said, being with women's basketball, he was really into that. You know, UConn program was really into it because his daughters maybe were thinking about UConn, or like I said, Oregon was like really down with him because of Ionescu, and he had formed a great relationship. So it was a devastating thing across all basketball platforms.
Well, let's talk a little sports. We had I was stunned when I got a text from Tim today saying no one was elected into the baseball Hall of Fame.
Right. And the closest one was
Kurt Schilling.
Kurt Schilling, and he said he did like Butch Beard said, take my name out of your mouth. He said, take me off the list. I want to go on the seniors list, and of course, my favorite player of all time is going through that nonsense where they haven't put him in yet, Dave Parker. So I think this might be his last hurrah, and I think he's on the senior list, but I think this might be his last year.
But with Schilling and Bonds and Clement, I think this year coming up will be their last time. They're 10 years on there,
right,
and then they're gone. And I don't have a problem with all three of them waiting to the Veterans Committee. I watched Tom Verducci today do his thing. He showed how he did his ballot and who he picked. And when it came to Schilling and Clements and Bonds, and there's a clause about character. Okay, they're talking about character now.
Okay,
character now, because you got Cap Anson, Ty Cobb, and Kennesaw Mountain Landis, who was a virulent racist.
Right.
Those cats are in there. You can't retroactive. You can't kick them out of the hall once they're in there.
Right.
So they're looking at whatever issues these people had, because they said so much. I didn't know Bonds had a domestic violence issue that was brought up today. I didn't know Clemens had a statutory rape issue that was brought up today. I mean, these cats who are going forward with the proliferation of camera phones and everything else, they have to be really pristine off the field as they were as great on the field.
But you know what, Mike? I think if they continue that with this holier than thou, they're going to lose their prestige because guys should be in there aren't in there.
Well, yeah, exactly. And, and of course, I'm out here with this Golden Gate Bridge behind me. Of course, I've been out here for most of this bond stuff. And he also had a situation where his son was caught up in something where it was almost like he quit playing baseball once his son had an incident with his mom, because he was married to someone else. And I believe this domestic violence situation might have been with the second wife or the other wife. But, as I said, that's one of those things that they would have to dig up, because I didn't really hear that much about it. I mean, I kind of heard a hint about it might be, but some things you say, you know what, I can't get all into that. I mean,
right.
At what point are we just really trying to get all the salacious stuff and the tabloid stuff instead of just going to the real stuff of what's going on in the baseball field? And he still never said, hey, look, man, I took steroids and this is it. Remember, when they tried to get him, it was on perjury. And he said that, hey, I may have taken the cream, but they never got him like saying that, hey, man, your whole career is tarnished because you took steroids all this time. So that's the thing about that, is that what are we really doing with the witch hunt with Barry Bonds when you haven't really got him on that particular thing? And before that stuff even came into play, he was multiple MVPs.
Well, that's what I wanted
to get stats. That was Hall of Fame anyway.
That's what I wanted to get at, because it's like, that may have been the case. My deal is this: Hank Aaron, still forever and a day, amen, is the home run king for Major League Baseball, because he did it in a way that wasn't so obtrusively like what Bonds did. I mean, he went about it with dignity, with class. He had to endure pressures that the Major League Baseball players today never have had to deal with. So Aaron will always be number one. I don't like it that that there's a specter of not doing it properly. I don't want to say the right way, because that's just a code for play like boring baseball. But that Barry had that issue. Granted, the guy was, to me, he was the very best player in Major League Baseball, bar none. He didn't have to do any of that. The last game I saw in person of his, well, for a couple of years when I just left Houston, he had 4 doubles off the center field wall of the Astrodome. 4 ropes, just bam, bam, bam. He was just. This is before the steroid stuff. I mean, this guy would just like go up there and just have those kind of games. But I want to just say the 10 people who are the top 10 guys that had votes this time. You had Schilling, Bonds, Scott Rowland. I didn't know he was really up there like that. Roger Clemens, Omar Vizquel, who I think was one of the greatest shortstops ever. Mike Wagner. Is it Mike Wagner? That's not Mike Wagner.
Is it Bobby Wagner?
No, this is a relief pitcher for Houston and Atlanta and Colorado.
I don't even remember him.
Mike Scott? Was it Mike Scott?
His name is Wagner.
Okay,
I want to say Mike Wagner.
Well, keep going.
Scott, excuse me. There's Gary Sheffield, Andrew Jones, Jeff Kent, and Todd Helton. Todd Helton, who was the, he was a starting quarterback up at Tennessee. He really didn't do a whole lot. Then the guy came after him, kind of pretty much, became a stud. Peyton Manning.
Yeah,
right. Those are 2 things there. But Todd Helton's an incredible, outstanding hitter. Sheffield, outstanding ball player. Jeff Kent, I thought he was a decent ball player.
Well, I give you something. Jeff Kent won the MVP over Barry Bonds, and they were on the same team. And I said, how in the world can Jeff Kent win an MVP with Barry not only being on his team, but being in the same league? So, and then Jeff Kent got into trouble when he said he was washing his car and slipped, but he was probably riding a bike or something. Yeah, exactly.
Like that, yeah.
Same thing as the pitcher.
Yeah. But I want to go back to Bonds.
It's Billy Wagner. It wasn't Mike. It's Billy Wagner.
Yes.
Billy, okay. See, I was close. I said Bobby, but yeah, Billy, okay.
Mike, the year he chased that home run record, and I don't care what he was doing or whatever, it was incredible.
Let's not forget. Let's not forget, though, I was also in the midst of that Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire one. When it was the Cubs and I was right in the mix of that one. Actually, that's the year they went to the playoffs for the first time in forever. So I had a chance to cover the playoff. It was only one playoff game in Wrigley because they got swept. They blew the game in Atlanta, but yeah, they were playing the Braves. So of course that was cool to have Maddox back because Maddox was an ex-Cub. So it was a lot of that going on. But yeah. But the when Bonds was doing that, I was like going like, man, this is amazing because
it was freaking amazing.
It was amazing, but and I went to a couple games when the Brewers were come out here. So that was like probably the most up close I got. Most of it I was watching from here in the living room or something like that because it was hard getting tickets for that, and they wasn't had an affiliation here. I didn't really get to cover a lot of those baseball games.
What were you gonna say, Tim?
I was just talking about that. I was marveled at the home run chase with Sosa and McGwire, and I kept thinking throughout the entire thing. The marveling was not so much what they were doing, was why neither one of them got one in their ear. Why are you just, is there some unwritten rule? I must let him hit one 900 feet off me? Because I'd be
lucky Bob Gibson wasn't back there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why are people afraid to not go in on these people? They are fearless. I don't understand how they got away with being able just to hit with impunity the whole time. But it was remember that was allegedly the year that they saved baseball. Remember they were just coming off shortly after the strike. Because remember that was '94. I'll never forget that because I was covering the Brewers. I didn't mind the strike at all because that's the year that the Montreal Expos are going to snap the Braves streak of winning the Eastern Division. And so the Braves was thinking that year, and Montreal was about to blow it out.
But you know what? That might have cost Montreal a pro baseball team. They wouldn't be in Washington right now.
That's a good point. Hey, tell me this. Tell me this. Do you guys agree that Bonds belongs in the Hall of Fame?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
I believe
Rose too.
I believe Kurt Schilling belongs in the Hall of Fame. He's had a
Kurt Flood. Kurt Flood
of a Hall of Fame. Roger Clemens has had a career worthy of the Hall of Fame.
And that's what I'm talking about, guys.
But
they are doing all this stuff. You got to be a good guy and all that. And we definitely love high character, but you are diminishing the Hall of Fame. But you're going to have a bigger Hall of Fame of guys who aren't in there, Mike, than guys who are in there at some point if they don't stop.
I try to weigh it against people who I think were like, how did he get in? That was not so much how did he get in, but I thought we're more dubious of getting in. I'd totally forgotten that Jeff Bagwell is in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Jeff Bagwell is better than Barry Bonds. Gary Carter is better than Barry Bonds. You know, these cats are in. It's like Jim Thome is better than Barry Bonds. You know, that kind of stuff. You go, you know.
And another thing, and you guys know it, you got a lot of guys voting who don't look like us.
Didn't like him.
And don't understand us.
Well, it's beyond that. You've been on the road with these cats. You know about their character.
Right.
They questionable character. If they had to be held to the same standard as these ball players, guys cheating on expense reports, cheating on other things.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, if they were held to the same moral standards, they wouldn't be able to withstand the pressures and stuff. I mean, I've seen these cats. You get up there and see them on TV and whatnot, and seeing how they, you know, come off as being the arbiters of all things great and holy about these sports. Knowing good and well, you know how they living, yet they expect the athletes to be different.
And that's the thing about, I think a lot of these baseball writers and voters and however the machinations work, a lot of them love having that esteemed perception as being the creme de la creme of Hall of Fame voters, that our standard is more stringent than all of them. So you really have to be legit to get in our Hall of Fame. Unlike, you know, basketball and football and hockey, you know, ours is strict. So, and I think a lot of them are walking around a chip on their shoulder that, you know, we didn't like Bonds. He was a jerk, and we're gonna make him sweat it out, or we're not ever gonna put him in, you know. And he might have to go to the other committee, the seniors committee.
And I think we're joined by our guest. Darren, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
What's happening, brother?
Good, and yourself, gentlemen?
Hey, man.
All right.
Well, first we need to introduce you, Darren Smith from Kansas City, 1510 AM, 94.5 FM, ESPN. Hey, man, we're going to talk some football, but you got to answer this question. Is Barry Bonds a Hall of Famer?
In my book, he is, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, you talked it out.
That's all of us. It's a consensus.
Not even close. It's not even close, man.
He was always a Hall of Famer.
So go ahead, Darren.
No, I said he was always a Hall of Famer to me. So even through all this nonsense, he was never found guilty or anything. You know, he was accused, but you know, I mean, he looked like us, so I mean, I guess he's found guilty in the court of opinion and law. So, but no, he's a Hall of Famer in my opinion.
That's exactly what we were saying before you came on. Speaking of Hall of Famer, you got a future Hall of Famer there, quarterback, that's about to win his second straight Super Bowl. Yeah,
I'm talking about Chad Henne. No? Okay, all right.
And before you elaborate, Darren, just think about this. This guy that had a MAGA hat in his locker already prevented one black quarterback from being the first to go back-to-back and get multiple Super Bowls. He's in the way this time. So hopefully this time our guy Casey could take care of that and get this first multiple quarterback or multiple Super Bowls by African-American quarterback. So,
you know, I hadn't even thought about that, Mike. You're right.
Yeah, it's true. That's why I was so mad. I was so mad he threw that ball. I said, man, you were about to make history. I said,
well, don't be mad at Russell, be mad at Pete Carroll.
No. Actually, Bevel. Here's the weird thing about Bevel. Bevel was a former Wisconsin quarterback, just like Russell. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, they blew that.
But you look at it, like, you know, this, I didn't realize this, but there was one Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs had like one offsides call from going to 3 straight Super Bowls.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't remind me about that.
And that was questionable because he threw an interception. Brady threw an interception, and that's when they said, "Oh, we better blow the whistle now." He was in the neutral zone.
He was offsides.
Yeah, you covered this team all year. You cannot be surprised that they're back in the Super Bowl.
No, I can't. No, I'm not surprised because I predicted it. So, I mean, I predicted back in April that they would face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, everything has fallen into place as I already predicted it. So, yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
Now, did you feel that way when Tampa Bay? Sorry about that. Did you feel that way when New Orleans smoked Tampa Bay both times?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, you got to remember, I made this prediction. And I posted on social media. I made that prediction April 22nd. So it's not like I expected the Bucks to go undefeated. I mean, I expected the Chiefs to go undefeated, but for me, even through the pandemic, to me, the addition of Tom Brady was the key factor because you had a perennial good team already. They were 7-9. But you had a starting quarterback that had 35 turnovers. Well, you can't have that many turnovers and put your team in harm's way that many times and expect to win. So I figured if Tom Brady, knowing that he would see the landscape when he was looking for a new team, you look at Tampa Bay, they got all the pieces that you didn't have in New England. Now in New England, you took your team to the wild card. They got upset week 17 and then obviously got knocked off in the wild card, but you did that with really no talent. You go to Tampa Bay that has 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers, 2 Pro Bowl tight ends. You have a running back, that you get with the first round draft pick. You got an offensive line that is stealth and that can protect you. Well, the only thing that's missing is a quarterback in leadership that will lead that team. Now they had good players on defense already, Shaq Barrett and a few others, and they brought in Ndamukong Suh, and they also had Antoine Winfield. So they had the pieces in place. You had a good offensive coordinator and Byron Leftwich. And you had a great defensive coordinator and Todd Bowles and the staff there. So everything was right there in the place. All they needed was time. Well, to me, 16 games, 17 weeks throughout the season is enough time to build enough chemistry. Now, obviously, they didn't have preseason, they didn't have training camp, but Tom Brady, he plays the game up here, and when people thought that he didn't have his arm wasn't that strong. Well, I beg to differ. He just didn't have the players to push the ball down the field. When he had Antonio Brown that one game, he was able to push the ball down the field with them. Knowing that Antonio Brown might get a chance to come back, I figured Tom Brady, using his leverage, using who he is, using his capital, will be able to get Antonio Brown on that team, as well as talk Rob Gronkowski out of retirement to come and play, which is what he did. And I predicted all that back in April. So again, not that I'm Nostradamus or anything like that, but
that one, Darren.
That's just how I felt. And so you get to the situation now. I mean, you just see. Look, I obviously when you have the situation in New Orleans again, that was first game out. You don't know how things are gonna operate. So it's a toss up. Now, when Antonio Brown joined the team in week 9 when they played the Saints on Sunday Night Football, I think that kind of woke the team up a little bit. Like, well, damn. I mean, New Orleans is pretty good. But what happened was when Kansas City came and beat the Saints. I'm sorry, when Kansas City came to town to beat the Buccaneers hadn't had a bye week yet. That game with the Chiefs was their last game before they went into their bye. So they had that 2-week period where they could work out all the kinks and just put players only beating whatever you need to do to get this team together. And as you've seen, ever since they lost to the Chiefs, they've been on a 7-game winning streak.
Tim.
I was looking at it from the perspective of, okay, you got Eric Bieniemy going up against Todd Bowles. I think 3 of the 4 coordinators in this game are African American.
No, 4 of them.
What's that?
4 of them.
All 4 of them. All the coordinators are.
Well, no. Well, not Steve Spagnuolo, but you have Eric Bieniemy with the Chiefs. Right. And you have the offense, defense, and the special team coordinators for the Bucks.
Right. You got Keith Alexander, who came from Atlanta, and You have Leftwich and Bowles. Bowles, former Morehouse coach. We started his career there. But,
and don't forget, to your point, Bruce Arians. I was just on a call before this that Bruce Arians, he's the most advanced coach, because I believe all of his coaches are either black and I think he has maybe one or two women assistant coaches on the staff as well. So, that's the model that needs to be seen, that needs to be replicated around the NFL, on top of the fact that it's a crying shame that he's got all that talent there and nobody's going up for a job interview. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I mean, talk some more about Houston. It's down to one team, Houston. Well, the enemy deserves better than Houston, because Watson wants out.
Well, again, that's Houston's doing, and that's their fault, because it was public knowledge that it was reported last or during the fall that Deshaun Watson would be in on the discussions and the meetings. Well, he would be in on the decision-making process on the GM as well as the head coach, because Bill O'Brien wore both of those hats. Well, you put that out there, and then you turn around, and then the firm that you hire to do your search for GMs, they bring you back two names. Both of those names are African American, Louis Riddick and someone else, and you decide to go and hire some white guy from New England, from the Patriots. It's like, did you not learn your lesson the last time you hired somebody from the Patriots? But no, you didn't. And so that upset Deshaun, because Deshaun is a woke athlete. I mean, he's someone who gets it, and he's good friends with Deshaun. I mean, he's good friends with Patrick. And Patrick and everyone has been singing the praise of Eric Bieniemy the last 2 years. And so Deshaun, they conversed during the offseason, and he told him, he said, look, man, if Eric comes down there, if you can be coached by Eric, he said, bro, he's going to make your life totally different, because he gets it. Obviously, he learned from Andy Reid. Bill O'Brien, no one's ever considered Bill O'Brien an offensive guru, an offensive genius. So, it's the Houston Texans they shot themselves in the foot with the decision making that they did, and the fact that you did not even offer Eric Bieniemy an interview during the bye week, and you had to wait for Deshaun Watson to say he may want out of there to now bring him in. So now it's too late trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, you know what though? Going back to Brady, think about it. The last couple playoff games, he looked like Jameis. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Then New Orleans dropped like 4 of them. So the thing that the Packers did not capitalize on those interceptions. That was just terrible. Then, of course, that idiotic not going on 4th down. And Aaron messed up himself because he had the lane wide open to the end zone on 3rd down. Exactly.
He tap danced into the end zone.
Right. So that's the thing. That's the thing I'm saying about how I think, our guy Rob Parker loves to call him the luckiest of all time. And I think he does have a lot of fortunate situations. I'm like, he did not look good throughout these playoffs, but yet he's still in the Super Bowl.
Well, I would say I thought he looked great in the first half against the Packers. The second half, I'm still baffled. And I got a chance to actually watch the second half of the game last night on the NFL Network, because I ended up going to the AFC Championship game so I had to leave towards the end of the game, so I didn't get a chance to see it. So when I got back and got a chance to watch it, it baffled me, because to me, Tom Brady was making throws that he didn't have to make. They had essentially a 2-score lead. I think they were up 28-17 or 28-10 at the time, or 21-10, and so they had essentially a 2-score lead. But he's out there throwing the ball down the field, I guess, trying to get chunk. Instead of just, to me, when you got that type of lead, you can methodically work the field, go up and down the field, utilize the clock, keep Aaron Rodgers on the sideline, and score, force him to come back out and react and force and try to make those quickly, because he has to play catch up. You might be able to catch him in a mistake, or maybe go 3 and out, get the ball in good field position, and then march back down the field, score again, and put him in in dire situations. So the fact that he was still throwing bombs and getting interceptions, I was like, Brady, what are you doing? Are you trying to lose the game? So, because I've never seen a game like that, to where everything is working in your favor, where all you really have to do is just utilize the clock. The clock is your friend, and and you go to the Super Bowl at home. But this dude is throwing the ball. I guess he's trying to force Aaron to make a game out of this, and it almost cost him.
His best play of the day was that late in the second quarter.
Yeah, at the end of the half. Yeah.
Let's just try to get the field goal here, and he throws a dime for a touchdown. That was his best.
DB back there.
Yeah, I think he cost some. I think he cost somebody his job too with that touchdown pass.
He got beat on 2 passes, 2 touchdown passes.
But
I think that was a bit of racial disrespect in going working right there on that one.
I don't know about that, but
it's like he's like a little Wes Welker, Edelman type dude. It's like, man, you ain't gonna run past what?
Oh, you talking about little Scotty Miller? Hey,
don't sleep on Scotty Miller.
Yeah, underestimate your own peril.
Have you had a chance to talk with Eric Bieniemy about this coaching situation? I'm sure he's probably all business now, but he's got to be frustrated at not getting the proper opportunity.
I mean, he's frustrated, but there's only so much he can say. I mean, he can't just. I mean, because he's still trying to get a job, but I mean, there's, he doesn't have to say anything when you have people like myself and others who are speaking out for him. I mean, but here's the thing. At the end of the day, you're not going to tell these white billionaire owners who spend $1, $2, $3 billion on their team who they can hire. I mean, if they're determined to hire somebody, whoever they want, they'll do so. And lose a draft pick, I don't care. But you're not going to tell me who to hire, or how I can spend my money. So, it is what it is. It's sad that we're 2021 and we're still in this stage, but that's just the reality of the world that we live in.
And I saw a press conference where somebody threw that at him, like about, not being hired. He said, I can't worry about that now. I have to worry about, our next game and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that was my guy, Harold. That was my guy. They wouldn't let me ask a question, so Harold he asked my question for me. So because I was coming in a whole different direction. I was going to be, I was going to be a little bit more aggressive in my approach, and but basically the question I was going to ask him had they gotten to me was, did he think, does he think like the clock works against him as well? Because the fact that he's still in the playoffs means that he can't interview and to an extent, I don't think he can accept the job either. So that's the other thing that works.
No, I think he can accept the job, because I'm thinking about Shanahan out there in San Francisco. He was already the 49ers coach Super Bowl week when the Falcons were playing the Patriots. He was as good as gone. And that's
no, it wasn't official. But you got to remember, the rules aren't the same for us, man. You got to keep that in mind.
And Darren, one guy that doesn't get enough love, I think, for the Chiefs, Chris Jones.
What about him?
His play on the defensive line.
I mean, he played well last week. I mean, most of the season, Chris Jones was in the witness protection program. So, I'm not. He and Frank Clark, they were hard to find most of the season. So, the fact that they stepped up, one, they needed to, because we're paying you $20 million, and if you're not going to show up during the regular season, this is a time where you better show up and show that it's money well spent. So that's what I'm saying, because he looked good last week, and he hadn't played well over a year. The defense hadn't been. Seems like the defense has been better this year. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny because you look at it. The first year that they won a Super Bowl last year, 2 years ago, they ended up. Well, what was funny is the defense came together, but they were suffering through injuries, so they didn't really get a chance to play together as a collective unit until late in the season. And I think it might have been after the Tennessee Titan loss. That's when the team came back, and if I remember correctly, because I went to all the games, but I think the next game was in Mexico City, and they had won that game, and then that's when they had that 9-game stretch where they won the last 6 games of the regular season before winning the Super Bowl. So the defense had turned things on from there and started playing well the rest of the season, which is kind of like what they've done now. There was an arc somewhere, and I can't remember where, I mean, because the team was 14-2, so it's hard to say. But but the defense started playing better. Even though the games were one possession games where they were like 3 points or less or 6 points or less or whatever, the defense was still playing exceptionally well. Now again, I throw week 17 out because they already had the number one seed clinched. They had the best record, and so they didn't want to have any. They didn't want to get their main stars hurt, so they sat the starters in week 17, even though they lost that game against the Chargers. But you look at it, the defense has played extremely well. When it matters most, and as well as they've been getting better as the season and the playoffs progress. So they're playing at a high level right now, in the same respects that the Bucks defense is playing well right now as well.
So Darren, I had the pleasure of covering the Bills when they were in their somewhat dynastic time, even though they didn't win anything.
Right.
So you're in the midst of this now where, people are thinking that this team could be a dynasty. But what was the mood of the city when Mahomes went down and then had to go into concussion protocol? Was it panic?
Well, there were a lot of people freaking out. I mean, when we looked at the replay, we saw that his head never hit the ground, and then you saw footage of Patrick running up the deal to the locker room. Well, if he had a concussion, he wouldn't have been able to do that on his own. So we knew then that he was okay, and then we found out. Andy Reid said after the game that they were trying to get him back in the game. I mean, he could have came back in the game. The problem was when they asked him the questions, so whatever question they asked him in the protocol, he had gotten one of the questions wrong. So had he answered all six of them correctly, he would have been back in the game. So I mean, once we found that out, I knew. I knew personally that he was going to be fine. He was going to start in the game. I was like, unless the rapture returns and Jesus returns, to come pick our souls up. There's no way Patrick is not starting and playing in the AFC Championship game on Sunday.
Now, this week, when the Super Bowl rolls around, is it going to be? They're going to talk about Arians and the head
Andy
coach
Reid.
Andy Reid, Arians and Reid, as opposed to Leftwich and Bieniemy, the guys who are running the show. I mean, the storylines, because CBS seems to want to defer. They'll say that's a great call by Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, as opposed to it being on the quarterback or being on the coordinator. Well, they'll give everybody else shine. What do you think how do you think that's going to work out? Because these storylines are already starting to write themselves. The GOAT versus the guy that's almost a GOAT already.
I mean, look, man, it's ratings. I mean, this is what they do. I mean, you can't. I mean, it comes with the territory. I mean, Andy Reid's gonna get the credit if they win. He's gonna get the credit if he loses. I mean, he's gonna get the blame if he loses. So I mean, I don't have a problem with that because you know that's what sells, and that's what I mean. Look, this is going to be the highest rated Super Bowl in NFL history, and I'm pretty sure every year it almost seems that way. But but the fact that but that you got Tom Brady moving from the AFC over to the NFC, you got Tampa Bay playing the first home Super Bowl. I mean, there are storylines within itself that writes itself, and obviously, Tom Brady being considered the GOAT, as you mentioned, versus a player who everybody unanimously thinks that is the best player in the game right now. So, what better way to cap the season off than to have Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes? This is, I mean, and then literally, if you just think about the first AFC Championship game that Patrick played in, it was against the Patriots when they knocked the Chiefs off at home. I mean, that game, that game put Patrick on the map as well, just by the sheer fact that he brought the team back. I think the Chiefs scored like 21, 24 points in like 3 minutes. And so, saying to force the game to go in overtime, and Patrick just never had a chance to get the ball in overtime. So, when you look at it like that, again, the storylines write themselves. And so whether they focus, look, see, first of all, they're going to have enough time on the pregame show to touch on Eric Bieniemy and Leftwich, and so it's going to be like a 5-6 hour pregame show. So it's not going to be all just Patrick and Brady and Arians and Andy Reid. So I'm almost positive that stuff will be touched on. But when it comes to the game, obviously, look, he's the head coach. He deserves the credit, deserves the blame. But I can assure you, Eric Bieniemy will be talked about in that game. Now, whether or not Leftwich will get as much publicity as Bieniemy, I don't know about that, because I think Bieniemy is still going to be, the talk of the game because of the situation that he finds himself in.
Hey, Dan, I
Now,
know
do you
you got
find
to get out of. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, Mike. I was at 10.
you think Andy Reid's going to be? He makes a Hall of Fame decision by saying, you know what?
No.
We're going to start. We're going to start
No, no.
Mahomes.
I'm gonna stop right there. Andy Reid ain't going nowhere.
No. I'm saying, is it going to be a Hall of Fame decision of his? His decision to start Pat Mahomes. I'm going to trade our starting quarterback. Pat Mahomes is ready to go now. Do you think something like that, where it's like you have a quarterback to start and he's doing a pretty decent job, but you got this kid nobody really had faith in, except for Andy Reid, and the Chiefs trading up to get him? Do you look at it from that kind of perspective, where it's like this guy really knows personnel, knows what he's doing, he knows this is the next great thing out there?
No, I can't give any that credit. I actually have to give the chief scouting department credit, because they've hit on a number of draft picks for a number of years, and people like to give Brett Veach credit, which I think he was in the personnel or scouting department at that time before he became the general manager. But I like to remind people that John Dorsey was the one that was actually the general manager that drafted Patrick Mahomes. So I don't like to not make sure that people don't get the credit that they deserve. But no, I mean, look, man, the Chiefs had you got to remember, they drafted Kareem Hunt, they drafted Tyreek Hill, drafted Travis Kelce, they drafted Marcus Peters. I mean, a lot of the players that they drafted, performed well for the Chiefs over the years, and even if they traded them or sent them away, I mean, they still perform well. I mean, Marcus Peters, when they traded him after the 2018 season. No, I'm sorry. When they trade him, at the 2017 season, they traded him to the Rams, and he ended up playing in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. It would have been nice to play against them again. Had the Chiefs beat the Patriots, but it didn't work out that way.
And Derek Thomas in 1989 too, the late Derek Thomas.
Yeah.
So
that was Carl Peterson. So.
And Tim, you better get this, because his wife is gonna be mad. He's Patrick Mahomes and his father's Pat Mahomes. But Pat,
the other day I'm going, okay.
All right, but Darren, Pat Mahomes, of course, a baseball player, and then of course Patrick played baseball too. Have you had any kind of conversation with Pat Mahomes, and then also will you be talking with Patrick about this whole Hall of Fame mess with no inductees this year?
Well, actually, I talked to Pat Sunday at the game. I called him I think it was during the game. Actually, I talked to him, but because we're going to be doing a show together after the football season, perhaps potentially either on iHeartRadio or Netflix. So we're trying to work something out with that. When I do have that conversation with them in the future, again, I may talk to him while I'm in Tampa, but it'll probably be after the Super Bowl when I have that conversation with him, where I'll bring it up and get his thoughts about that.
Hey man, I know you got to get out of here. I got one more question for you.
Sure.
And when Patrick spent that first year sitting, could you see him coming? Was it anything as you would watch practice or something that you could see, whoa, this kid, I know he was a high pick. I'm kind of seeing why he was a high pick.
No, actually, to be totally 100, I didn't know a lot about Patrick even after they drafted him, because he played for Texas Tech, and even when they came up to play Kansas, because I cover the college football team up here, KU was sorry, so it was like anybody could put up yards and points against Kansas, so I didn't really look at him like that. So I thought when the team traded up, they were going to get Deshaun Watson, and I've been on record that I wanted Deshaun Watson over Patrick Mahomes. Now, obviously, it's one of the few times I don't mind being wrong because of how it worked out, but I still believe that had the Chiefs drafted, had somebody may have taken Patrick and the Chiefs got Deshaun Watson, I still think we're in the same situation, because Deshaun is that dude to me, in my opinion. But no, I did not see this coming from Patrick until I saw him in week 17 of his rookie season, and saw, okay, he's got he's got some ability, but then you don't see it until week 1 the next season where he throws 6 touchdowns. You like, well, damn, where the hell did this come from? Then it start, so then it's like, oh, okay, now I got to pay close attention. And then, the greatest game I've ever seen was the 54-51 game out in California. I got a chance to go out. That game was supposed to be in Mexico City, but because of the field down there, they moved it to LA. So
Right.
me and a colleague of mine, we were out there covering the game, and we went down. We watched the game from the press box, but then we ended up sneaking down to the field in the fourth quarter, and we're watching it from the end zone, and it's like, wow. I mean, and the game was going back and forth, and so literally Patrick Mahomes had 6 touchdowns, I think 3 interceptions and 2 fumbles. So he had 6 touchdowns and 5 turnovers, all within 60 minutes. So that lets you know that somehow, some way, the team had at a minimum 11 possessions in that high scoring game.
Wow.
So Darren, how we talked to you about this before the season started, but what is this Super Bowl protocol going to be? Who gets to go down to Tampa? How does that work, media wise?
That's a good question. I mean, I got credentialed again, but I really don't know how they're gonna. I mean, I know a lot of stuff is going to be done virtually, so it's going to be a lot of Zoom stuff. So I don't know how Radio Row is going to operate. I'll see when I get down there. And like I said, I leave Saturday, so it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think it's going to be a cluster, to say the least. A cluster duck, but but it's the NFL, man. They're going to do what they're going to do.
Be safe, man. Hey, brother, we appreciate you checking in with us, Darren, and be safe down in Tampa, and enjoy the game.
Anytime. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for having me.
All right, not a problem.
All right, take care.
All right, peace.
All right, my brother. That was Darren Smith, Kansas City, ESPN, 1510. Brothers, time flew by, man.
It did. Yeah, he was an interesting cat. Great to have him on to talk a little bit about some football and about the Chiefs. And it's great to see somebody who isn't trying to toe any kind of corporate line and would admittedly saying that he wanted Deshaun over Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Right, I know, and that is cool though. Even though he was Nostradamus at first, but in this one he said he's glad he got it wrong. So yeah, I like somebody that's honest like that too.
I remember watching him in college. It was nothing special. I mean,
right.
Good player.
Yeah.
But I didn't see all this at all.
I have regional bias. I think anybody putting up those kind of numbers say, yeah, you don't do that. You wouldn't come over here down to the Southeast and try that kind of nonsense. Because you see all these wild scores with, Texas Tech and Oklahoma State and the shootouts in Oklahoma, how these cats are just putting up numbers left and right. No defense at all. So, you don't respect it.
But you know what? That's easing on down to the SEC now, man. I saw a lot of high-scoring games.
Yeah.
Oh,
SEC has changed.
Yeah, they're turning it around in a big way because Nick Saban, where he used to be pounding ground, he has every year. He have Alabama's probably put like about 300 receivers into the league the past 2 years.
Right. And another school, Ohio State, of course. Remember three downs in a cloud of dust with Woody Hayes? And look at them now with how they just throwing the ball up, and then some of the great receivers that have come out of Ohio State.
That didn't start until the man who wanted to spend more time with his family came up to Ohio State. And Myers left the SEC to bring the SEC to the Big Ten. And they say it works up there at Ohio State when you're getting bigger, faster, stronger kids, great receivers. That Olave kid was great for Justin Fields, but Fields is going to be gone this year. And somehow
what are the Falcons going to do with
number 4 in the new Fontenot from the Saints? He said we're going to get the best player available. So that means to me that speaks to we're going to have somebody sitting the bench for a couple of years behind Matt Ryan and grooming the next guy. This is the quarterback draft this year, and I think that's going to happen at number 4. I don't know who's number 3, but I know it's like who 1 and 2.
Do you think that's going to be Fields though? You think Fields is going to Falcons?
My thing would be to do that, to try to give Jets Julio, because the Jets need is a deep threat. Give the Jets Julio and get their pick give me, then you move up and get the quarterback. But then too, people are saying, Fields was hurt in the championship game, and that's why he didn't look really good. I'm kind of skeptical. I've seen him play bad in 2 really big games, last year against Clemson and this year against Alabama. I want somebody who's lighting it up in that last game. Even if they lose, I want them lighting it up. He didn't look that good.
But you know what, guys? It's a lot of offensively. It's a lot of college principals that are going to that game now. With the read options.
Well, you know what? Our football guru, our draft guru, said that he put Alabama's quarterback ahead of Fields.
I mean,
I don't know. But he reminds me.
Yeah, Matt Jones. Yeah.
Jones reminds me of Brady. He didn't have to do too much. The guy gets him in and out of good plays, and he got talent. But when you got what's the guy, the running back for Alabama, toting the rock back there, that's a guy I really would want them to draft because they don't have a running game.
Najee Harris.
Yeah.
Najee Harris.
Metro Atlanta, because you got Najee Harris, and you had Sunshine for Clemson, and you had Justin Fields. All these Metro Atlanta dudes that escaped, which kills me.
Yeah.
Sunshine from Atlanta.
You got the hair. Come on.
Hey, we gotta get out of here on this Remember the Titans stuff, man.
Trevor, Sunshine, okay?
Right, yeah. Even though that Sunshine's from California, but yeah.
Hey guys, I enjoyed this hour. We want to thank Darren Smith for checking in with us and sending our prayers out to the family of our late friend Sekou Smith.
Yes, rest in peace, Sekou.
So next Tuesday, brothers.
And Kobe too.
Thanks for checking in, everybody. Good night.
All right. Yep, right.